What does the incident show around what we can trust in terms of China saying it will be a better global citizen, to paraphrase, and still how its military is acting?
Unfortunately, Tom, it is totally contrary to the supposed spirit of friendship that we saw in Beijing, particularly at the Great Hall of the People. It's very easy to lay on thick platitudes in those diplomatic exchanges, but if while we're having those diplomatic exchanges and pretending that everything is fine and that we are friends again, at the same time, the PLA is taking deliberate steps to put Australian service personnel in harm's way and to injure them, then I think that says more about the relationship than those diplomatic exchanges. And what it requires of us is to be very clear-eyed about who we are dealing with and what we are dealing with. This is the Chinese Communist Party. This is the Chinese government. It is incredibly assertive about its interest in the region. It doesn't have too much concerns about our interests, and it's happy to ride roughshod over them in occasion. And we need to accept the reality of that and respond accordingly. It's why our government initiated the AUKUS agreement, and it's why this government needs to double down on AUKUS and actually deliver the funding it needs to make it a reality, because ultimately we know that the Chinese government respects strength and despises weakness, and it is only strength that will get them to respect Australia.
I wanted to ask you about this High Court ruling that, of course, has meant there's a bit of a scramble as to what happens to those detainees, those people that were being held indefinitely. The Minister on the weekend said that she was actually told by the department, you'll likely win this case because it's so highly litigated against. Essentially, you can't be bringing forward legislation all the time for things that haven't happened yet. Do you accept that explanation that the department maybe made the wrong call here?
Tom, it's almost certainly true that the department provided that advice to the minister, but that's not an excuse for the government, because the department would not have said, it is a certainty that we're going to win and you do not have to worry about the prospect that we might lose because we're definitely going to win. Like all legal advice, it would have been very carefully couched. It would have said, on the preponderance of probabilities, we think we are probably going to win, but there's always a risk with the High Court that we may lose. And whatever the legal advice said, which the minister has now disclosed, so I look forward to them now releasing publicly, whatever the advice said, any prudent and responsible government would be prepared for the possibility that you lose. You cannot go to the High Court to argue a constitutional case without understanding there's a possibility that you lose. And if you lose, you need to be prepared to act on that. And it's very clear this government was completely unprepared.
But if it's happening so much, there's so much different litigation, is it a bit much to be constantly preparing legislation for cases where probably in plenty of other circumstances they did win?
Tom, it's very kind of you to have a go there, but let's be really clear about this. Yes, the department is litigated against very often, but it's not every day that they're in the High Court challenging the constitutional basis of a fundamental protection of our border protection system and community safety. This is a big one. It shouldn't be treated like a trivial federal court matter. This is very substantial.
Finally and briefly, any thoughts on the resignation of the Optus CEO?
I'm not surprised that Optus CEO has stepped down. I think many Optus customers will welcome that because their performance during both the cyber attack last year and the outage that we had this year has left a lot to be desired. I hope Optus can move on because we actually do need strong carriers in this country. We want a competitive telecommunications market. It is not in our interest for Optus to not succeed, and I hope they can rebuild from here.
James Paterson, appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.